Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Mark Peacock. I'm the Vice President, Chief Marketing and Communication Officer at Linkspring. And from all of us, both Tridium and Linkspring, Happy New Year. Delighted that you could join us today. And looking forward to having a nice presentation with everybody for the next 60 minutes or so. And Matthew has just put up a good housekeeping. That's what I'm doing. Thank you, Matthew, for that lovely Mrs. Doubtfire video showing housekeeping. And a couple things, we are recording and it will be available shortly thereafter, either later this afternoon or tomorrow. And for all those attendees and registrants, we will send a link out to you. And we will also include it on Linkspring's YouTube channel as well. If you have any questions, feel free to use the question mark icon that's in the platform that we are using for the broadcast. And we'll try to get to as many of those as we possibly can. And so looking forward to talking about a little bit about Powered by Niagara in 2024. I think the timing could not be better for this broadcast as we start this new year and we bring everybody up to speed on the latest and the greatest with Niagara and what's happening both with Tridium as well as Linkspring and our partnership together. And speaking of that is that Tridium and Linkspring remain really good, close partners for the many years, and the collaboration continues, and it will be continuing through 2024 for some of the things that we'll be touching upon today. Also, just like a special welcome to a gentleman by the name of Michael Youngs, who's recently joined Tridium. Welcome, Michael. And you can be guaranteed that we at Linkspring are going to be pushing the envelope with you guys. So be prepared. Michael is their new head of OEM sales and relationships. So again, Michael, welcome. So joining me today are Robert Hirsch, Senior Vice President, CTO of Linkspring, Troy Finley, who's the Business Development Manager at Tridium, and the unstoppable, never misses a beat, Mr., and I use the term with respect, Kevin Mamachek, who is their Sales Engineer Manager. And Kevin has been a really good, helpful person with us, and we greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple things that I wanted to kind of highlight here and is the agenda. What are we going to be covering today? So after this introduction, we're going to be talking a little bit about the JACE 9000, the latest version of the Niagara framework, which is 4.13 U2. We're going to be talking a little bit about Niagara Remote, a little bit about Niagara Recover, then Niagara down the road. What's happening? What can we all expect from Tridium with respect to Niagara as it continues to be enhanced and advanced? And then Robert is going to talk about JENEsys Edge. And as many of you already know, that Linkspring was the very first portability partner with Tridium to go ahead and port the Niagara framework, the full stack of Niagara and the power of Niagara onto additional devices other than the JACE that has enabled for Niagara to be used in a lot of new and expanding use cases. We'll follow with a Q&A and then I'll close it out. So next slide, Matthew, please. So as we approach another year, the landscape for automation, integration, and smart within the built environment continues to remain dynamic. Adoption of automation and integration and smart building technologies, the stuff we all do together, is really at an inflection point that is being driven by a lot of different factors. They include connectivity, data, of course, the cloud, the edge, and operational and business outcomes that are coming together. And the key here is the word outcomes. It really comes down to, when you look at this, it comes down to identifying the gaps and right-sized, right type of solutions that are unifying the different systems and the equipment so that you as an integrator, you as an OEM, you as a end user can control, can monitor, and really start taking and continuing to take that proactive approach in managing and operating the buildings. And one of the things that we at Linkspring have noticed going towards the end of 23, and definitely what we're seeing in 2024 here, is controls are being looked at to do more than they ever have been before. Not just that connectivity and the integration, but again, the way buildings are need to operate and manage, be managed, that controls what we all do. People are looking for them to do more. And we could not be in a better place to do all of that with the Niagara framework. Next slide, please. And, you know, I'm often asked, what are some of the insights that you see? What are some of the conversation buzzwords that you're hearing in the industry, that I'm seeing in the industry? So I've listed 11 here, and just to kind of give you some of the areas, again, all of which the Niagara framework delivers on: versatility, flexibility, resiliency, to complex, to become easier instead of more complex, to continue that diversification, the importance of data and data proliferation, open, the edge and cloud working together. It's not one or the other, it's both working together. Being able to have options, whether they be licensing options, hardware options, expandability options, etc. Cybersecurity, obviously, we cannot continue to have conversation, install the technology and the solutions we all deliver without having that cybersecurity element addressed. And outcomes. Outcomes, as I said earlier on, are important. And it's not just conserving energy and, you know, a lot of the things that we've talked about over the years, but it's the business outcomes. How is Niagara delivering on the business outcomes? So again, before we get started, then I'm gonna call on Troy and Kevin to get us started on the 9000. Niagara and Lynxspring and Tridium together, that combination really is the best all to be able to deliver on this. So without further ado, Troy, Kevin, I'll leave it up to you guys for the next while. Thank you.
There it is. Able to unmute now. Thanks, Mark. Certainly look forward to this session with you and your partners every year. Guys, I think we're in our third year of this. I'm going to turn this over to Kevin quickly because he's really got the lion's share of what we want to see today. I'm excited to be entering my 9th year supporting Links. started in the right direction in this space. I was coming in green 9 years ago, and here we are. So thanks, Terry and Linkspring. Over to you, Kevin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you see my screen?
No, we.
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah,
There it
now we
is.
can. Yes, Kevin, you're on, buddy.
Okay, new platform. This is you seeing if I'm on my toes. So, all right. Okay, all right. So let me we'll start. This is not the slide order, but we'll kind of go from here. JACE 9000. So if you're not familiar with that, it is a new device that we started shipping late last year. It is designed as a replacement for the JACE 8000. The JACE 8000 will continue to make those for a couple years because we've got a lot of customers that have standardized on those, or you guys have things from Linkspring that you've standardized on. So you've got to look at how this will fit into the progression of Niagara in the customer site, but it is designed so that it's not a disruptor. It is designed so that it can be used to replace something that's in there, or if they want to buy the new component. What you need to take away on this is that we listen to a lot of the feedback from our customers. There's always need for speed. So it's got a faster processor. The other thing I'll call out, this will be the first device that we ship that has a Linux kernel, and there's a reason why that's important for the future for some of the hardware that's not taken advantage of in this device, and that is this machine learning component that we have there. So we've put it in there. So what you have to look at is like we've said, right, is if I have a hybrid cloud environment, how do we have a cloud that talks to the equipment and they work in combination together? And so this is part of those components where we might need to have some machine learning that's down on the edge. So that has been put into this device as well. It supports all our existing things. So you don't have to worry about if I'm going to pull something off the wall and drop this in as its replacement. All of the connectors, all of the modules, all of those work along with this model. So faster processor. The other gotcha here is prior to this, our 8000 was sold with Wi-Fi, and then the factory would disable it and make sure that it wouldn't be enabled. This one, we've heard loud and clear that you want 2 SKUs. So the first one we're shipping now does not include Wi-Fi. Subsequent version of this will actually have all of those modules installed and have the appropriate antenna. So pretty interesting. The Niagara light, or the Niagara on the logo, does light up. One of those things when you see, like, oh, that's kind of cool. But that is the JACE 9000. So again, it's something that can be easily plopped into an existing replacement or supply chain, right? We also design on the motherboard multiple components so that, we've all learned something from COVID is how supply chains work. So we redesigned this one. Actually, it's late to market because we took it back to the board and actually spec'd out multiple components. If we couldn't get this, what could we put in the replacement? So that is the JACE 9000.
Kevin, it's Mark. I just want to interrupt. Sorry, but it is available now. Linkspring has them, and we're shipping them. So just make sure that everybody was not confused that they were not available, but they are. Sorry, Kevin.
I'm sorry that I conveyed that confusion. So yes, you can get them today. Just a real quick comparison, just so you can see, this is speeds and feeds. It will be in the recording, so I won't dwell too much because I have lots of information to talk to you about. Do note that the machine learning chip and like the Bluetooth piece of the 9000, those are things that we are going to take advantage of in the future. So we've got some interesting ideas on maybe how to increase the provisioning of the devices with the Bluetooth radio and things of that nature. So there's a lot of future proofing that have been put into that. So let's look at 413. So 413, we released the first version last year. It's kind of cool. I can say last year now. So when you look at what U2 does, there's essentially those are bug fixes and security pieces to the puzzle that we put together. And 413 U2 is what the JACE 9000 ships with. So that is an important note. I won't get into a lot of detail because we could spend a lot of time just on the features of 413, but I need to bring them to your awareness so that you can kind of take note, and then we can get more in depth later on another webinar. But the 413 introduces what we've been hearing and from our customers that are using the system database is that we were kind of flat, right? The system database would see only what the lower level was connected to. So in this instance, if I had a supervisor, a global supervisor, and it would reach down into a local supervisor, it would only see what's connected to that local supervisor in that data. It wouldn't go down and traverse it and say, okay, here's a JACE. Is there anything connected to the JACE? So we now have in 413 a multi-tiered system database where it will actually go and find all of those modules below that JACE. So this is actually huge news. Expect to see some things in future versions of Niagara that can start to take advantage of having that wealth of understanding what the entire network, Niagara network, is set up. So keep that in mind. If you're also, once you start to utilize the system database, you start to look at how can I create PX pages that use these virtual views and tags and things like that, so I don't actually have to wire in the component into the PX page. So there's a lot of cool things that happen out of the system database that you should be aware of. So multi-tiered, it will index all of those. Each of the components report up those changes in the database so that the master soup has the entire network.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
Interrupt you for a sec. If you could hide that little message at the bottom of your screen and turn off that little picture-in-picture, just close it because it's blocking the presentation currently.
There you go. How
Cool.
about that?
Thank you. Perfect.
The angel said no. So again, every rev that we come out with Niagara, we add more and more components to the templating and the provisioning. And so 413 is no stranger to this. We actually listened very loud and clear as people get more into templates. They were like, I have one giant flat file of template. So 413 allows you to actually start to create folders, just like you can create folders now for your actual connections in Workbench as well. But this little tiny change goes a long way when you're trying to organize all of your templates. So keep that in mind, that we now are able to have the folders. We've also been able to add some enhancements for the bulk deploy. So usually templates go hand in hand with the provisioning service and the template service. So with all of these little changes, it's kind of like raises the level of living, right? So it makes things a lot easier on me as I go and create these provisioning services and these templates. So keep that in mind. 413, and we keep adding more and more of those components. So every release, Edge gets more components that it can do in the provisioning statements, and the templates get more and more robust. This is one of those things, I wish it was called the silent installer, because that's what it is. That's essentially, if I say silent, I'll get it. It's unattended. I usually say unintended. Oh, that's not the case. But what this is we have a lot of enterprises that want to run a script and push Niagara out, like Workbench, out to somebody's laptop. And they don't want it to stop at the T's and C's. They want to just have it do it get it installed, and it's all done invisibly. This has we have a special config file that you can place inside the installer for those folks that are pushing those types of installs that will negate and keep from those pop-ups happening. It will run an installer, which somebody that's pushing that software out watches and can monitor, but literally it happens invisibly. If I would run this install, I wouldn't see any type of dialog boxes. I wouldn't get any prompts. It just happens in the background. So that's one of those things that large enterprises that manage laptops have been asking for. So 4.13 is the ability to deliver that. And that can happen in Windows and it can happen in Linux. Obviously, there's two different methodologies or config files that you have to have for each one of those operating systems. So when you look at things that are happening in the industry, as more and more clouds come online, more and more people get comfortable with having their data in the cloud, it just reiterates that we need to start tagging. Right? And tagging is how we identify what a point is. If I have a number 72, you have no idea what that is. Is it 72 degrees? Is it number 72 in a vehicle number? Is it 72 in pars of golf? Right? You don't know. So tags become important. Well, the Haystack has a new version called Haystack 4 that adds additional types of groups and breaks down components and gives you more, I want to say, not totally automatic tagging, but it gives you a lot. I actually do less tagging in 4 than I do in 3, because 3 I have to think, well, I need to add the device tag. I need to add that this is an equipment tag. This will actually start to look at groups and apply the appropriate tags dynamically. So if you, again, we could do a whole session on this. It's probably something that we'll have as a course, but this is one of those things where this just makes it easier. And you'll see that the next version, 4.14, we're actually adding support for brick. So that's another one of these, they call them ontologies, that allow us to essentially identify data in a standard way. And when you start to put all of your devices all into the same cloud, into the same, what they call a data lake, this becomes something that's imperative. And what's nice about Niagara is we'll let you run as many of these ontologies as you would like, because we created the dictionary, the tag dictionary as a service, which means I can have multiple tag dictionaries. So I can run a Haystack 3 tag dictionary, a Haystack 4, and then later when we have 4.14, I can have brick, and they'll all run together. So I don't have to worry about picking one. I can slowly move over into identifying those components. Another big IT. So you see this, a lot of IT things put into this release. We were getting a lot of requests, especially with today, that we need to start having our logs outside of Niagara itself. So Niagara has an audit log and Niagara has a security log, but you need to actually look at the station to see those logs. And if you're in the IT world, they don't have the time to do that. And they have all these real high-end tools that use machine learning that scan and watch for erroneous logins and things of that nature. So 4.13 gives us the ability to integrate what they call syslog. So essentially, Niagara running 4.13 can actually communicate with those syslog servers. It will actually send its logs so that they're all available for those tools. So again, we can dive deeper in that. It's pretty cool. Essentially, all it does is takes our logs, our audit logs, and our security logs, and spits them over into another service that you can run reporting and scripts and things of that nature. But this is one of those things where as we see larger and larger instances, we think about securing our environment, our networks. This is one of those tools that is needed for an enterprise to start to look at, how do I know I have an erroneous person that's logging into a JACE in this building if I don't consolidate all those logs? So it's pretty cool. Well, it is if you like logs. So it's just one of those things that we need to be able to do. So if we look at some of the enhancements, every release, and I can't reiterate this, because this is what's allowing us to do what my next demo will be with Niagara Remote, is that every release we do, we add more and more functionality into the web browser of the stack. So not that I'm changing the browser on the stack, I'm adding that functionality so a web browser can take advantage of it. So if you look at Niagara, and I wish I had a number, I would say we're 90% there where I don't have to have Workbench. I can get 90% of what I need to do if I'm engineering through the browser, because all of these components have been creating HTML views. One of the ones we were missing, which we were getting a lot of feedback on, was this device manager for BACnet, right? And so if I wanted to see how many Niagara network pieces are there, or if I want to see what devices are for BACnet, I had to wait for these managers to be rewritten. Well, we can do the Niagara, we can now do BACnet. This allows me to literally, from a remote connection, discover a new device that's on one of those networks, and then I can add it in. So this, by adding these features, not only are we modernizing the Niagara stack and allowing for that continued remote access, but we're now making it easier for integrators so that they might not have to roll a truck to be able to go in and change a override or a provisioning piece, or somebody installs a piece of equipment and I'm the integrator engineer and I want to be able to add those types of things in remotely, right? So every version of Niagara comes out, you'll see eventually we'll even get to a point where I can maybe edit a PX page in the future. So it's one of those things that we are pretty committed to, because when you see the power of what this does with a cloud and remote connections, it speaks for itself. So Niagara Analytics, we were getting questions of, hey, I want a baseline, and we could baseline in Niagara Analytics before, but you had to do backflips to get it done. And that was taking these data sets and inversing them and aligning them to the timeline. And if you did it once and you didn't do it in 6 months, you forgot. So what they've done with this latest release is there's actually a baselining functionality in the report widget, so that you don't have to remember that. You just click that you want a baseline, and it says, what year do you want a baseline? And boom, you get a baseline line up with your information. So this was one of those, we watch how many requests come in, and this was the one that was the loudest. And so we've added that functionality into the analytic engine. Not that we couldn't do it before, but you didn't have to do the analytic gymnastic. If you're not aware, Google shut down some of their authentication components with their server, and they kind of took it back and turned them off, and took it back, and they've kind of gone back and forth. So what we've done with 4.13 is we're actually starting to support those new methods of connecting. So if I have a server that is outbound, I can actually connect to it using this OAuth component. So this was one of those critical things that our email, if I did IMAP or I did POP, I had to get essentially an application key that would allow that connection into those servers. Now I can actually set it up with 4.13 where I can go natively to the Google service and be able to authenticate with the OAuth token. So they still are doing app tokens, so it's not like they've completely cut that off, but we need to make sure that we have components in place for when they do take the day that says this is the way, right? And it's the only way. So that is just more things that are there to understand the current ways of connecting things in the secure world. Video driver framework, HTML browser viewing has been enabled, so we can actually get to the devices and see and actually control them with the HTML widgets. We now support real-time streaming protocols from cameras so that we can pull up live feeds from that. And we've got some native widgets that are HTML that will give us access to the pan, tilt, and zoom functionality of these cameras. So that framework has been updated. You're aware that we have an enterprise security component. So there's lots of stuff, and I'm not going to get into details on that, but there's a whole wealth of things that are happening in the enterprise security world where we're actually rewriting a lot of the Niagara components to work with more standards that are out there. And we've got some additional hardware that they're working on to help integrate Niagara into biometrics, like, using a phone and its NFC chip, using a thumbprint, using an eye scanner. Those were all things that our current form couldn't support. And now with the standards that are out there, we've selected a few and we're creating hardware with those standards that will allow us to be able to integrate those components into a network building. So cyber defense, and I know I'm going fast, but we've got a limited amount of time. Certificates, I can't stress this enough on certificates. These are the bread and butter of the cloud world. And I actually have a primer on what HTTPS outbound is that we're going to try to get up into Niagara University, just to kind of get our heads wrapped around this. But every version of Niagara we have come out, we're trying to make this as easy as we can. Certificates inherently aren't easy, but we're trying to make them easier. And so part of this, changing the way this works is we're trying to put contextual help inside our dialog boxes and rearrange these in a more, I want to say, fluent order. We're creating these modules that our certificates have plugins for, so that we can actually add these things more quickly into the world. So the goal is, right, we want to have the ability to put, when you look at Niagara out of the box, we default to our own self-signed certificate. We strongly believe in everything needs to be encrypted, and that's part of the power of Niagara, is that we have that security stance. But IT is more comfortable with, I want an actual certificate that I can control, right? If I've got device certificates, I can turn off that single certificate. And so part of these certificates is that IT will hand you a bunch that you would put on your JACEs or your supervisors and things of that nature. And then they manage it. We also see a need, and this is kind of a foreshadowing of the next release, of automating that process within Niagara, right? So how can I have a supervisor say, hey, I'm a certificate authority for all the Niagara components below me. If you need a certificate, I'll sign it. Just send me a CSR. So cool, exciting things to come that will help make this much more manageable on the Niagara side. But you need to be aware that we spend a lot of time in certificates, especially when you look at the new cloud components, on making these components as easy as we can. And of course, there's a HTML view of this, so that if I wanted to remote in, I can get access to the certificate and look at it and replace it. So lots of things when you look at the release, right, on what we support. So usually when a company like Windows drops, Windows Server 2014, when they drop it, we drop it, right? Because there's no sense that we would maintain that if they can no longer get the parent company support. So this is kind of the state of the union and where we are with the different types of Ubuntu out there, or Red Hat, or Windows Server, or if I'm using VMware for a virtual machine. Those are the ones that we support, which are, that should be no surprise to you. It's just whatever those companies support themselves. So that was a lot of information. Just so that you know, we also 4.13 introduced containerization. So this is actually a very different model from what we're used to, because this is actually a subscription. So just I'm going to just let you know that it's part of, when we release 4.13, you can actually get a version of 4.13 that's already in a Docker container. And essentially, when you look at these and you compare them of the, I don't want to say the old way, but there's two schools of thought on things that are in the internet world. When you scale large enterprises, VMs usually don't scale well, and they're resource intensive for the actual container. If I have several versions of Niagara running in a hypervisor, I've duplicated each of those containers exactly the same. And where the world wants to be for, things that are moving in the enterprise space where we scale these large systems, these containers are the new way of thinking. And so we've taken Niagara. We're still kind of what they call a monolithic, the Niagara stack in there, but over time we will break those components up where it will scale much better in these containers. So this is something that is new to us. So we're learning a lot ourselves, and we have customers that are really good at this, and they can take it and run with it. But I wanted to let you know that there is now a version of Niagara that is available in the container. The only thing that's new to think about is how they run these containers. This is all stuff I'm learning. So, I've got some customers that they have pieces of equipment that have the ability to run a container. So they could take this and run it on a switch, right? They could run it in a cloud. They could run it on some piece of hardware that's embedded. So there's all kinds of ways that these containers can be utilized, and I'm learning as we go along. It's pretty exciting to see all these different types of things that we can do with it. But the only thing you have to remember is these are licensed, they're subscriptions. You subscribe to the container, and that gets you all of the SMA components. I think we break it down monthly, but it's actually a yearly subscription. So just keep in mind, if we're going to go in the container route, there is a subscription associated with that. Okay. All right. So I know this is like a fire hose. Now what I'm going to do is bring up, and I'm going to just demo this. I've got, actually, let me bring up one slide here so I can kind of talk through it. So this
in
is
8 minutes or less, Kevin. We're
okay.
gonna hand it over to Bob at 12:45.
Yep. Okay, got it. So this is Cloud Suite. So just to let you know where we stand in the state of the union of Cloud Suite, we shipped data services last year. We shipped Recover, which I think is called Restore. I have to go check. And then we are in beta for Remote, and I'm going to demonstrate Remote right after this. And Remote is pretty exciting because it allows me, literally, before, when I'm at home, I couldn't get to the JACEs at the office. And when I was at the office, I couldn't get to my JACEs that were in my home office. Remote completely removes that obstacle for me. So I can get to, I forgot to, add this component into my weather station to alert me that it's freezing outside, right? And I just drop in and do it. And then where we'll go with this, with the suite, is the one of the components that you just need to be aware of that is in the works is, right now the cloud either takes the data, and then we have an API that lets you extract it, right? And then there's the ability to do a remote connection through a reverse proxy. But all of these are building. One of the things that we hear from customers, especially analytics companies, is they want to be able to have the cloud not control totally the building, because that's part of a hybrid cloud, is you have the cloud that might have more compute to do machine learning and figure things out, but it wants to be able to talk down to the edge to say, hey, I need you to follow this recommendation. And so that's also being built out into our cloud strategy, so that we can have that hybrid cloud. Tridium is we've looked at all the different solutions of, total cloud, total building. We see this special dance between a cloud and the edge, because you never want the buildings to be on their own. You still have to have that command and control in there. So our cloud approach is a hybrid cloud approach. So that's enough for the slide there. Let's go into the demo. I have, and hopefully it hasn't timed out, I've logged in to, so this you can look at. I'm going to log in as an admin so that I can show you the wire sheet, but I'm going to remote into this JACE that's at my house. So if you look at here, I've got a bunch of JACEs that are running all over the world here. I'm going to go to this home one. I have data services. I have Recover. So Recover gives me the backup files, which is okay. It's not a great demo. I can download and restore, but I just hit that little link. So it is now authenticating me. So I'm going to log in as an admin because I'm going to log into this component. Actually, I just logged into the wrong one. Let's see if I get there. I have so many test users on these systems, some for my internal cloud, some for my external cloud. So, all right, it worked. So I've authenticated in. So 2 things, I have to have a Niagara Cloud set of credentials. That's what keeps that secure. So I have to have permission. It forces 2-factor like you saw on the screen. So I have to register my phone to do the 2-factor. Once I've authenticated that I am allowed to remote into this JACE or this supervisor, then I'm connected and it's prompting me for my credentials for that supervisor or that JACE. So I'm going to log in my top secret password. I'm going to say log in, and I've logged in as the admin. If I logged in as just a normal building user, it would use the nav file and I would go right to the interface. You can severely limit what an end user can do and see in Niagara. So that's nothing new. So I can completely remove all of these nav windows and the config space, but I wanted to give you a real quick view of, as an integrator, this is a very cool tool. So I have a weather station that's running. I can see the devices. I've got a couple backnet devices that are running. My weather station's actually using an API to call an external cloud to pull information that I have local. I can get to the wire sheet, so I can do things that I would normally need Workbench for, right? So here I'm going to do them all via the cloud. If I wanted to go to the kick control and be able to drag out a component on the wire sheet, I can do that. So every version of Niagara, we give more and more functionality to the web component of that instance of Niagara. And that starts to cause this effect where I have a lot of power with remote based on what version of Niagara I'm running. So here I can get into the wire sheet. I can then go and take that and do all kinds of things. I can remote in to look at the interface. So let's say I wanted to check my weather. So I'm doing this pretty fast here to kind of show you all the cool things that I can do. But here I'm just going to go into, I have a PX page attached to this. So I'm going to double click that. Here's a nice little interface. If I wanted to look at my weather station. So this is just like if I was inside the building and I hit the IP address of that JACE or that soup. It's the exact same way. But with remote, I'm doing it from my iPad or I'm doing it from another building, right? It creates that secure connection to that piece of equipment. And notice that the bookmark, I can bookmark that. That doesn't identify anything about where this is or what IP address. All that we have to make sure is completely concealed from a remote user, because that's out in the wild on the internet. So we encrypt all that. We have to have certificates in place for all these connections to happen. But you as the end user, it's a simple bookmark. We didn't make that complex. I launch the bookmark. It's going to ask me for my credentials to be able to do that, 2-factor me, and then I'm off into the races with my credentials in Niagara. And it even does, I'll do one more thing here. If we look at this, I've got a service running on this JACE, and you might have seen it, reflow. So I can hit reflow with remote. So all of my end users that want, the ability, like when I said with COVID, and they wanted to be able to unoccupy a building, I could remote in and all of that functionality could be available to me with all kinds of different interfaces. This is a little more sexier than my PX pages.
Well done, Kevin. We'll leave the last 15 minutes for Bob Hirsch at Linkspring. Exciting stuff. Look for more of this to come before Summit, and we look forward to seeing all of you there. Thanks again for having us, Mark. Over to you, Bob.
Okay, fantastic. Can everyone hear me?
Okay.
We can.
Nope, somebody did. Somebody took it.
Okay, Matthew, bring up my slide. Kevin, thanks for your presentation. That stuff is awesome. We look forward to seeing more of it. What I want to briefly go over is just to make everyone aware that's on the call here today. Linkspring's JENEsys Edge products, specifically, what that portfolio looks like, and peek into what enhancements and possibly new products that we're working on, and maybe even what we're working on going down the road. But before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that we've been working with Tridium and the Niagara framework specifically for over 25 years. And we have a business investment with the Niagara framework. We covered our relationship with Tridium, and our moving forward strategy includes their technologies, those technologies. So we endeavor to be very knowledgeable on the topics that Kevin was demonstrating to us. And if you have any questions, please allow us to get with you, answer your questions, or help train you on some of the things that you're interested in. All right, next slide there, Matthew. Thank you. All right, so just want to briefly go over, and some of this might be a review for some of you, but just give you an idea. The Edge 414 is an existing product, but we are working with different options, including making the existing product available in a case lot version. And when you see case lot versions, we basically try to make that economically available to you, where if you buy a case of anything, you're basically getting one edge free than if you buy 12 individually. Okay, so you get 12 for the price of 11 is generally what the pricing model will end up being. To our middle here is a new version of the Edge 414 that will be coming available soon. And that has just a lower device count available. And so maybe more applicable for other applications, maybe more cost driven for those applications as well. And to the right is that very same Edge 414 in the case availability as well. Next screen, please. And we're going to repeat this a little bit with the VAV. If you're not familiar with the Edge VAV, please contact us. We will set you up, get you some training. We got a lot of videos available for it, how it works. It is an embedded Niagara product. It's been around for almost a year. We had great success with it. This is the version we have today. And we've always had case lot versions available to it. But in the past, we had a license available to us that now we may have a license that limits to just one device. And again, will become more economically viable for your applications or your opportunities. Next screen. And here we go. We got something new. Many of you may have worked with an Edge 534 in the past. Well, we do now have an Edge 434. This will become available to you at ASHRAE. We plan on launching this at ASHRAE. It is similar to the 534. It has 34 points of I/O. However, it's licensed differently. We have the larger footprint Edge product with a 50.3 device license, and we will also make it available in a one device version as well, minimally. And in both cases, will be available in case lot versions. So like I said before, we try to create some value, economic value to you by purchasing a case over a single unit. So this is pretty exciting. We think this is going to have a big impact on our sales, a big impact for our customers. The audits we did in recent months, over the past 19 months or something like that, we found that 78% of our Edge sales really are targeting those low device, smaller point count applications. So we're driving more of our Edge solutions into that realm. So to make things more flexible for you, we created the 434 that's pushing the 534 basically in those small point, small device applications at a price point that makes sense for you as well. All right, next one, please. And again, another, just to continue on what I said earlier, we have Onyx XM34 IO units, but now we're also creating some XM14 IO extension modules. These are non-Niagara. They deliver additional hardware IO onto an existing edge device. What's interesting, the XMB, which is a BACnet MSTP device, it's compatible with edges and with JACEs, or JENEsys 8000s and JENEsys 9000s. These products should become available as well and announced to you at ASHRAE. So we're excited about that, giving you more combinations of different IO hardware counts to combine with other edges and possibly even with JACEs. All right, next slide, please. Something we're really excited about, and something that I don't want to get too deep into here, but is our working on E2E for a long time. Connection is basically the foundational of E2E. It's something we've been delivering on for many years, but that is a data collection mechanism, data curation, and it allows for API access by Sky Foundry, and Sky Spark applications, and so on and so forth. E2E now provides you dashboarding, reporting, view into your Niagara portfolios, and soon to come, command and control through our MQTT internet protocol. Basically, this will be offered in a couple different ways. We call them a device tier. Basically, you don't have to do anything. You buy an Edge or a JACE, and it will have our connectors in them, and they will connect to E2E, okay? And you will have an account, and you'll be able to see basic identifiable information from that controller, automatically, plug and play, all right? You're gonna be able to see the internal temperatures, voltages, memory usage, CPU usage, so on and so forth. It's really cool. And that basically is free of charge the first year, and then it's going to be around a very small amount, $5, $10 a year thereafter, all right? We get into the Pro that extends the controller into more of the navigational means or availability of E2E, really gets exciting then. And then over to the right, we talk about project tiers. Project tiers are our enterprise solutions that give you access to everything on a professional service type opportunity. So contact us on E2E when you find an opportunity, but we'll be giving you more information after AHR about that basic tier. So when you buy an Edge, you'll be able to get access to it. All right. Another new product that we will be introducing at AHR is our digital wall module. There's I call it digital wall module right now because it is, frankly, plug and play. This product's completely 100% compatible with our Edge portfolio. It will be powered and communicate through an RJ12 connector from the sensor to an Edge device. So it will be immediately displaying information, measuring temperature, humidity, other items such as CO2 and other VOC type sensors will be available. Proximity also, proximity will be available. This is pretty cool. The entire front is glass. The entire front is touch capable, programmable to what you want it to do. Completely brandable. It will be fully compatible and communicating with Edge and over an Edge network, so it can display different information at that device. It's really neat. The glass, don't worry, the glass is fingerprint free as well, so it's going to stay nice looking when it's on the wall. Right now we have it in a black version. We also will have it available in a white version. So more to come with that. We're pretty excited about it. We intend to bundle that with a lot of our Edge opportunities, especially VAVs. It's going to be really neat. Next. Okay, so what we just went over very quickly and jumped around a little bit was the idea that the Edge products, the Edge families, and including our Onyx XMs, is a portfolio of IP-based products. You have 534s, 514s. These products all exist. The new products are forthcoming. And we will announce and show those more to you at AHR. Next, please. Another product that is available here is the digital wall module. You can make that animation go, Matthew. There we go. That's, like I said, compatible with all of our Edge devices, especially 534, and you can use it on all the others as well. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll see you at ASHRAE when you come by our booth, or give us a call and we'll give you more information. Next slide, please. We're trying to wrap this up. And just for a little peek under the covers here, Linkspring continues to harden our edges. Our edge products are very robust and dynamic. I call them dynamic products, they're not static. So we're continually taking new ideas, reports from the field, updating things within the edge controllers as need be. Edge LSM2 is really a new development for updating our Linkspring Smart Module. And if you want to compare it to anything, the changes that were made to the piece or the JACE 9000 from the JACE 8000, we're doing similar types of upgrades and value propositions with LSM2 versus edges with the original LSM. We're also working diligently on a one-piece VAV, which includes the integrated VAV or actuator, and driving our costs more appropriate for the market. Niagara versions that we're working on right now to make available before the end of February is 410U7 and 4.13U2. And here's something that's interesting. BTL, or BACnet Testing Laboratories, we're working with Tridium right now, and 4.14 is a version of Niagara that's going to encompass the Niagara specifications and be compatible to create BTL versions of all of our Edge devices, as well as JACE devices, 8 or 9000s. And then finally, we talk about commissioning. We generally load very little bit on the edges when we send them out. But today, or starting at the end of the month, we're going to be beginning to offer services that allow you to allow us, the factory, to turnkey your commissioning, loading the appropriate Niagara, setting IP addresses, even loading your stations if you want to, and then doing appropriate testing before they leave the factory, so that you basically have less to do in the field and get to business installing products and starting up equipment. And I think that is it, Matthew, if I am correct here. All right, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thanks. Thank you, Robert. A couple quick questions, because again, I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. Is this, there was a question in and around, this is for you, Kevin, I guess, about Niagara and BACnet Secure. Can you give us just a brief explanation on Niagara 4.13 and BACnet Secure and so forth and so on, please?
Sure. So actually, 412, I think, even supports BACnet Secure. So BACnet Secure is a kind of like a hub and spoke on topology. 413 does it. You can set up a JACE to be either a hub or a essentially a edge component, right? Or there's a buzzword for it, and I can't recall it, but it essentially is the responding component. So a supervisor or a JACE could be both components. Obviously, device certificates are extremely important because that whole protocol has to have those in place. So that's the hard part. The barrier to entry right now is getting these components. In fact, the BACnet Alliance is actually trying to figure out how they might be able to automate that, but that's not in the current spec. So we support it. We can be both components, and it's all about certificates, and we continue to make that as easy as we can.
Great. One more question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Is Robert, you'd mentioned that Linkspring, we're currently under development for new chipsets for the Edge, and just beginning that process, new smart modules, etc. Just out of curiosity, can you just jump in just a little bit on, do we have any time frame when we're looking at next year, end of this year? Can you kind of just give us a quick little snapshot about that? And then the fact that I'm sure we'll be looking for some beta test sites as well for it.
Absolutely. The developments within the LSM2 are very active right now. We are in early prototype staging. We have the system on modules available to us, and we're also applying them to the existing form factor of the Edge device. So we are not changing anything, so it's completely compatible, looks the same. But it will have a new engine under the hood per se, higher performance, higher, in many ways. So that is going on. We intend to have products available, reaching out to customers to do some testing sometime in possibly Q2, late Q2 is my target. So we'll see what our developers tell me at the end of the day.
Good. No, thank you. And then just to wrap up again, thank you all for joining us today. If for future webinars, we would like to be delivering some more webinars to y'all. If you've got thoughts, ideas, subject matters that you would like, drop us a note at marketing@linkspring.com or any questions for this. And for those of you who are going to Chicago in a couple weeks, be prepared. I already looked at the weather. It's going to be very, very cold. Only one day they're calling for a little bit of precipitation, snow, but Linkspring will be there, and we're in booth 6262. Do come by, see us, get a little bit more info about what we presented today. And on behalf of Linkspring, we thank you. Tridium, Kevin, and Troy, we thank you. And here's to all of us for a continued successful 2024 with Linkspring, Tridium, and the Niagara framework. Thank you.